This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Tiny at Obsessive Tiny on Twitter.
And this is Mike. You can find me at I am Mike White on Twitter.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of The Obsessive Viewer. We're a weekly movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show, each episode. You can find back episodes at ovpodcast.com, and be sure to see us at Indy PopCon on June 26th to June 28th at the Indianapolis Convention Center. We'll have live recording at our booth and a lot of fun stuff in the works. All that tickets actually just went on sale, so check it out at indypopcon.com. So, hey guys, how's it going?
Hey. It's good.
Great. So baseball movies.
Baseball.
Baseball movies.
Yes, it's springtime. It's baseball. This is a topic that I'm kind of excited about. I guess you can kind of consider it a companion episode to our football movies topic from 10 episodes ago.
Mm-hmm. Don't do that just because it's sports.
It's fun. I wanted to, and then eventually, like, as I was going through just Googling stuff, I think it was like a kid from, I think one of the movies we're going to talk about was in, what's it called? Space Jam. And I was like, we need to do basketball movies.
Oh yeah. Basketball movies would be great.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, baseball movies. For those unfamiliar, baseball is a sport. Documentary.
An American sport.
Yes.
I'm curious. I think the obviously the biggest baseball fan of the three of us is Mike. Mm-hmm. I never got into baseball, but it's just one of those things that it's like ubiquitous in the United States.
It's America's pastime.
It is. It's America's pastime, and I'm curious.
That's a funny name, America's pastime. And I know this is Obsessive Viewer, but side note, we're talking about baseball, and I love baseball.
Yes.
So whatever.
I was going to ask Mike, why do you think baseball is so popular, and why is it the pastime of America?
It's actually not that popular these days.
Right.
And that's kind of what I was going to ask. It is considered the national pastime, and there are just a legion of people over 30 who think it's the greatest thing ever. And I think it's one of the greatest things ever. But my stats could be a little skewed, so forgive me. Don't hold me to this, but it's something like the viewers for all 5 games of the last World Series combined weren't even close to the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Which is one game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so viewership is way down. In fact, you can kind of chart the waxing and waning of the popularity of baseball over time. Like in the early 90s, 93, 94, there was the strike, which turned off a lot of baseball fans, of course. And then in 97, 98 was the home run race with Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire.
Right.
And so it kind of threw it right back into popularity. And then Barry Bonds again. And then, in fact, the Cubs were good in the late aughts, which people kind of gravitated toward. And then the Red Sox won in 04, and then the Red Sox won again in, what year was that? 2010? Something like that? I don't know. Anyway, and so it was popular again, but once again, it's kind of on its way out in terms of popularity. And of course, football is just getting bigger and bigger.
Right.
And to your question, why do I think? I think it's because it's a game that's so accessible when we're young. Basketball is a fairly new sport. It's new, like it's within the century or last century, 1900s. Mm-hmm. Baseball has been around for just such a long time in America. And kids have played it ever since. So I guess they call it America's pastime because it's so associated with summer. It's so associated with Little League. And it's really kind of an American thing to go to a ballpark with, father and son type of deal. I think it's just very American.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny because the Japanese are better at it than we are.
Right. And it's more popular there, isn't it?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, baseball movies though transition. We have a list of movies we're going to go through, and I think Tiny's going to kick us off.
So first on our list is 1989. It is the classic Field of Dreams. Now this movie, I think a lot of people around the country consider this the best baseball movie of all time. I think it's pretty damn great. I haven't seen it in a while, but it's one of those movies that you really only need to see it once because it sticks with you, but you want to watch it like 50 times because it's just one of those movies. I think this movie strikes such a perfect chord because sports is so often a shared like family thing. Like, well, my dad played football, so I played football. And,
right.
I remember when we were kids going out to play catch with dad, and that's kind of the first beginnings of your interest in sports. That's where I think that's where a lot of kids start, as far as sports go, is just getting two gloves and tossing around a ball in the backyard or whatever. That's kind of where it starts. And that's sort of what this movie's about. It's about the purity of a team sport, like finding something within yourself to participate in a sport. And I know it's easy to kind of dismiss sports as this big jock thing. And it's like, it's overhyped and it's really not that special. But I think this movie demonstrates, why sports can be so important to people. Cause it's a link you have to other people and it's about challenging yourself. And, it's really just, you can kind of make it what you want. And in this movie, it's the purest form of that. And also it's actually pretty well acted given that it's, Kevin Costner. I'm not a fan of Kevin Costner.
Yeah, me neither.
But I think he's pretty good in this one. And, I think most people who played catch with their dads, when they see the part where adult Kevin Costner gets to play catch with his dad, that if you don't cry at that, you probably don't have a soul. It's one of those, it's an iconic scene, I think, in movie history. And it's for a good reason. So, and just at the end of the day, it's a really cool story. It's got a little bit of a very blatant supernatural aspect to it.
Supernatural black man.
Yeah. And it's kind of, it has, what am I trying to say? It's like it's a cheesy thing to say, but it's about a dream. There's people who dream of having a baseball diamond in their yard.
Right.
And this
that would be awesome.
Yeah. This kind of fulfills that in a sense.
It's also about a field. So sorry.
God. So yeah, it's just one of those movies that hits the right chord, and it kind of talks about, it addresses what's great about sports. What did you guys think of it?
Mike?
This was a movie that I was aware of when I was younger, but I didn't sit down and watch it. It was kind of a bucket list movie until about 2 or 3 years ago, in fact.
Wow.
And I found the movie to be not as eventful or powerful as time would have us believe.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was a fine movie, and I agree with a lot of what you had to say, Tiny. I think it shows, it's one of the examples of why we love baseball so much. You might hear this a lot in this podcast, but a lot of how I equate my feelings toward movies are kind of how I feel towards baseball at the time. And so let's say I saw this movie in 2011. The Cubs were the worst team in baseball in 2011, so my interest in baseball was kind of at a low point. And so I think the magic of this movie, or the magic of what makes this movie work for people, baseball fans, was just not there for me, because I was like, baseball, not again. And like you guys, I don't love Kevin Costner all that much, so it's not like his performance kind of floated the movie along for me. Like I said, I think there are good parts. I think the end works. I always love James Earl Jones no matter what, but I found the movie to not be as not just be as magical or eventful as I thought it would be. It was pretty good.
Okay.
Interesting. I'll probably come down kind of in the middle of both of you. I have a good deal of respect for this movie, but I'm not that. It's not a significant part of my movie viewing, like, history, I guess. Because like you, Mike, I saw this fairly late. I saw bits and pieces growing up, and the scene where the kid chokes on the hot dog, that freaked me out so much as a kid. Oh my God. Huh. That part freaked me out so much as a kid because Christmas Eve when I was like 5 or 6, I choked on a hot dog and almost died.
Oh my God.
Holy wow. I never made the connection until now.
Wow. That's something.
Wow.
It freaked me out because I love hot dogs.
Well, it freaked me out because I almost died because of a hot dog, Tiny.
Oh.
But I also love hot dogs, so I'd be willing to die for a hot dog. Anyway, but, seeing it like full, like from beginning to end when I was, by that time, an adult, I kind of felt like the magic of it didn't really affect me that much. I don't know how really else to articulate it other than I thought it was like Mike said, I thought it was it's a fine movie and Kevin Costner isn't terrible. But some of it seemed a little, I don't know if I'd call it overhyped, but I would say that it just wasn't effective on me. But okay. I still have a great deal of respect for it. And at some point I will revisit it.
Yeah. I think for our generation, we tapped into it as kids, and it strikes a nostalgic chord as well. So there's nostalgia there. That's what it was for me. I haven't seen it since I was a kid, but I probably watched it 10 times when I was a kid. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I need to see it again and see how I react to it as an adult.
Right.
That, I think, is the rub. I think the movie's about a time and place. As much as it's about the way, way past, as much as it's about Kevin Costner's character's father, it's also about, does it take place in the 80s? It's also about the 80s. Yeah. Or at least it just feels that way. I mean, it's not about the 80s like Mad Men is about the 60s. Right. But it definitely has, and maybe that's just a product of coming from the 80s, but it definitely has that late 80s, early 90s tone where, I don't know, if it doesn't hold up, it just doesn't hold up because of time.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, we all kind of, is that really all that we have to say about Field of Dreams?
Yeah, it's the one you have to see. And so listeners, if you guys want to comment on this one, please tell us why you think this one is so revered.
Absolutely.
If you know, I'd be interested to know.
Yeah, same here.
I think also this movie means a lot for people who played baseball.
Right.
And I didn't. Did you play baseball, Mike?
I did till I was about 14.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I never played, so.
What the hell, man?
Did you play?
Oh, yeah, like for a year.
Oh, really?
As like a little league. I actually,
I had no idea.
Yeah. Oh, I was horrible. I was absolutely horrible. It turns out that, when things are thrown at me, I freeze up and just kind of try to dive away.
That's natural.
Yeah. Right?
That is a natural, instinctive thing, yeah.
Yeah, and I also just really briefly, I'll say this as an anecdote. So when I was in Little League, it was like 5th or 6th grade, he was the pitcher. This kid at our school was a pitcher like a grade or two above me, and he was pitching to me and just hit me like right in my, like, my calf.
Oh.
It was horrible. It was terrible.
Wow.
That is the story of the last game of baseball 1 million people have played.
Wow.
Absolutely. But yeah, that's true. Field of Dreams is will resonate more to a certain type of person.
Yeah.
Or certain people's personal histories.
Right, life experiences.
Yeah, life experiences.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Tiny, do you want to move on to the next one?
Yes. Next on the list, this is my personal favorite of this list. It is 1992's A League of Their Own. This movie, I think, is great for a similar reason, but a slight tweak on it. Because Field of Dreams is kind of about your personal relationship to how sports affects the individual. But I think A League of Their Own kind of shows how sports can have basically an effect on basically can affect culture. I mean, not just sports culture, but culture of an entire country. I just as a side note, I saw 2-3 weeks ago, Bob Costas was on Bill Maher's show on HBO, which I watch that every week because it's funny. Hashtag politics.
Politics.
Yeah, but
Politics represent.
Bob Costas.
No, they don't.
Yeah, jeez, they don't really. Bob Costas was on there as a single guest talking to Bill Maher, and Bob Costas was talking about how he's kind of spoken out politically over the past couple years about certain things that do have an effect on sports, but he mentioned how people always tell him, people tell him, don't bring that stuff up during the games, man, because I go to sports to get away from things, and I just want to think about the game. I don't want to think about all the politics. And he understands that, but he was saying that, sports are more important than people think. It's more than just getting away from the world, because historically sports have affected incredible cultural change in this country. I mean, look at what Jackie Robinson did, and look at the U.S. hockey team beating the USSR in the 84 Olympics. Yeah, stuff like that. That has like a social effect on the common conscious of a culture. Hashtag alliteration. And
By the way, side note, little bit of trivia. Asked what his favorite sport was to watch / commentate. Bob Costas's answer: baseball.
Baseball. Yep. Nice. He works for the MLB. He does. I think he works for the radio. He does commentating on the radio for them. That's what he was talking about while he was there. So yeah, he loves baseball, and it's fun to watch him talk about it. But I think A League of Their Own falls into that subcategory of sports, and where this movie is about affecting social change, or how sports can affect the culture of a given area or whatever. If you don't know, the movie is about during the Second World War, basically professional baseball wasn't being played by men because they were, off fighting the war. And so it's about this women's league that was started up to kind of take the place of it. And it just sort of follows this one team throughout a year or two of the war, and how they basically went around and played baseball. I mean, and it got really popular, and it doesn't necessarily sound like a lot, but when you watch it, it kind of has this like, what is it, Rosie the Riveter kind of feel to it. Is it Rosie the Riveter or Roxy the Riveter?
It's Rosie the Riveter.
Rosie the Riveter.
And Rosie O'Donnell, of course, is actually one of the...
Yeah.
I've never heard that expression before in my life.
Rosie the
Riveter?
Yeah.
She's the propaganda poster of the woman.
Oh, okay, yeah. The fisting woman. Clenching woman.
Fist pump.
There you go.
She has the bandana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's showing her guns.
Rosie the Riveter, yeah.
Okay.
Red bandana, denim rolled up shirt.
Right.
Yeah.
So it kind of has that feel to it, and it's about, during this time that women of America demonstrated how they're not just women who stay home and cook and clean, and they can earn a paycheck, they can keep the country running. It's very, very appropriately and very inspiringly pro-feminist or pro-women movement. And I don't think it's a woman's movie though. Like I don't think it's I loved this movie as a kid, and like I said, it's my favorite on the list. This movie holds up incredibly well. I think it's really relatable for guys because it's just because these women are just they who are on this team are kind of like one of the guys. They rib each other, and they push each other. They stand up for each other. They just have great sports teammate connections with each other. And then Tom Hanks plays the coach of the team, and this is one of my favorite roles of his. He's so funny in this movie. And I think his progression as a character is fun for the guys to watch. But it's just a really fantastic movie. This movie came out when Gina Davis was kind of at her peak, I think. Which I don't know where she went, because I've always loved her in basically everything.
She had a show. She had like a network show the last few, like 3 or 4 years ago, where she played like the first woman president. And
Oh, really?
Right,
it was
yeah.
like marketed like it was like this groundbreaking thing, and everyone
Commander
was
in
like,
Chief.
Yeah.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
And everyone was like, "Okay, all right, Gina Davis." Okay.
Wow.
It wasn't well received. It got canceled, I think. But anyway, yeah.
Well, yeah, I like her in everything I see her in. I thought she was great. And like, like Mike said, Rosie O'Donnell's in it, Madonna's in it. It's a fantastic cast, and they all just act their asses off. It's a great movie. It's an incredible story. Mm-hmm. I think everybody should see it. Also features a pretty unknown, David Strathairn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's like the commissioner of the league or whatever.
Nice.
It's just a really great movie. What did you guys think about it?
I think it's... Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I'll just say really briefly, I haven't seen it in several years. I was going to borrow Tiny's DVD today, but I didn't think I would have enough time, and then instead I watched a movie that I'm going to talk about later, and I really wish I would have watched this movie instead. But I remember really enjoying the pieces that I saw of it, and I remember specifically it being a very good-looking movie in terms of the way that it captured the era and the period of the
Totally.
of the,
The
story.
production value is great.
Yeah, and that really makes me, that and Tom Hanks, and it just really makes me want to watch it again. It was on Netflix for the longest time, but it's not anymore, so I'll have to
that's a
borrow your
shame.
DVD, Tiny.
Yeah.
I don't know who the DOP was, but directed by Penny Marshall, and of Penny Marshall's oeuvre, this is probably my favorite, even more so than Big.
Nice.
I like this one as a Hanks Penny Marshall pairing, if there's such a thing. Better, I think, than Big. I used to love this movie.
Yeah.
Little bit of trivia for you guys. A lot of the games in the movie were filmed on Bossy Field, which is in Evansville, Indiana, which is where I live.
Nice.
No way, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so our Evansville Otters play here at Bossy Field. And my brother, who played on his high school team in Corydon, where we went to high school, they got to play a game on Bossy Field, so that was pretty cool.
Cool.
But kind of like you said, Matt, it photographs the era. It's of its time, kind of like the other movie. Although I guess it's not really 90s, so I don't mean to say that. It photographs the era it is intending to very well. I also love a lot of the iconic lines. You hear people kind of in an apocryphal sense say there's no crying in baseball without even knowing what they're talking about, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
It's one of those so iconic that it's kind of beyond the icon kind of lines, kind of movies.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciate it for that, because I always know what movie it is. And it's a good family movie. Great movie.
Yeah. As a brief aside, I mean, this is interesting. The cinematographer on it was I can't pronounce the name, but someone from the Czech Republic, but they actually just died March 28th of this year.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Also was the cinematographer on Amadeus and Awakenings. So
Really?
That's
Is it Miroslav?
yeah, he's Miroslav on.
Oh, yeah, Miroslav Wonderchek. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I know that name because I love Amadeus.
right. Nice. Well, rest in peace.
Yeah.
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 All right. Should we move on?
Sure. For context, listeners, we're recording this on April 7th, so it was like less than 2 weeks ago that he died.
Wow.
Yep.
But yeah. But anyway, yeah. Let's Mike.
All right. Pop quiz. How many movies has Daniel Stern directed?
1.
Is it just one?
He directed Rookie of the Year in 1993.
I had no idea that he directed that movie.
Me either.
Yeah. Nobody has any idea that he directed that movie.
Wow.
Yeah. Some TV credits and Rookie of the Year from 1993, which aside from the Wonder Years, we might maybe call the peak of Daniel Stern's popularity. I mean, that was between the 2 Home Alone movies.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so he's probably thinking, I could do anything in the family genre at this point. Let's direct a baseball movie about the Cubs.
That's about the Cubs.
Of course it's about the Cubs. That's why I wanted it so bad.
Nice. This movie, and then I won't bogart your segment.
That's okay.
Long. But this movie and the movie Little Big League, I've wanted to do like a double feature review on the site since I started it. But I really need to sit down and watch these movies again because I haven't seen them since I was a kid. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Rookie of the Year, I don't think I've seen in 10 years, but it's the type of movie I remember so well that I'm not sure I have to. It's one of those uber quotable movies from the 90s that just I don't really want to quote now because it's pretty lame, but I remember saying pitcher's got a big butt like during Little League games as I was playing. And so I talked to a lot of people, and I haven't been outside of the Midwest all that much. I've done some traveling, but I've never lived, obviously, outside the Midwest. And I wonder if this movie is as ubiquitous as it felt to me, because the idea of a kid who breaks his arm and it sets in such a way that he has a magical 90-mile-an-hour fastball was unbelievable. And then this kid gets to play on the Cubs. It is unbelievable. I mean, that was the dream for me.
I just
to
imagine
break my arm. It was like, I remember not being afraid of anything because if I just happened to break my arm, I'd be able to play for the Cubs.
Oh,
I
that's
just
awesome.
pictured you trying to talk Kevin into pushing you out of a tree or something.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so, Rookie of the Year stars Thomas Ian Nicholas, who was in the American Pie movies, and then that's it.
Yeah, now he's like a singer or something, isn't he?
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he actually played a show here in Indianapolis, and some of my friends went to it, and they like hung out with him and played pool and stuff with him and like his bandmates after the show.
That's cool.
Yeah, I was like, cool.
So he plays Henry Rowan Gartner, and he kind of is taken under the disgruntled wing of Gary Busey's Chet Steadman, kind of the old man on the team, and they form a relationship. And it's basically you just see this kid playing baseball, and of course by the end of it, his arm resets in the pennant game. I don't know. I loved this movie so much. I'm scared. I'm almost scared to see it again.
I know that feeling. Question.
Yeah.
So his arm sets in a way that allows him to do that. Is it like depicted that way, or is it like a mystical, magical kind of?
Oh no,
way?
It's depicted that way. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. He. And okay, maybe I'm a little embarrassed. I don't remember how he breaks his arm the first time, but he does. It might be in a baseball game. I think in a Little League game, he breaks his arm. And then so it's set up almost like he's in a pitch windup. Okay?
Okay.
And then when they take the cast off and the doctor tells him to lower his arm slowly, he lowers it at 90 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And smacks the guy in the face. And I remember, Tiny, it sounds like you remember this movie a little better maybe than Matt does.
A little bit.
But like the first time, oh my God. The first time he has a baseball and goes in for a pitch and he like winds his arm up and he could like feel that this is going to be a holy shit ball.
Yeah.
And like he turns around to look at the ball like it's got a mind of its own. Yes. There's got to be a gif of that somewhere that we can post.
Yes.
Oh, that's
with
awesome.
this episode. So he like winds up and then my arm is so f***ing awesome. And then he throws a 90-mile-an-hour ball.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, that is magical.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's also the line funky butt lovin' in the movie.
Jeez.
Which I talked about with a friend and he kind of took it as a sexual thing. And I guess I didn't really.
Huh.
Now that you think about it, it kind of is.
I honestly can't think of a context in which that's not sexual. I don't know what that says about me, but
Well,
I don't know.
as opposed to normal butt loving, I don't know. But yeah, as an aside, what do you guys think of Little Big League? Because it's not on the list, but it's
Right.
a pretty much a contemporary of Rookie of the Year.
I think I liked Little Big League a little more.
Really, a little big more.
Who was the star of Little Big League?
John Candy.
John Candy. Who was the kid though? Was it nobody? Just a kid who didn't really grow up to be anything. I thought he was a notable.
I don't think it was anyone that grew up to be in American Pie and then not be in one of the sequels because he wanted more money. And then
Is it John? It's not John Candy. I don't know why I said John Candy.
I keep wanting to say Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but I know that's Angels in the Outfield.
Oh, that is Angels in the Outfield.
We'll get to that, Tiny.
Luke Edwards.
Okay, I thought he was somebody.
Oh, Timothy Busfield is in that movie.
Yeah, it's funny because he falls in love with the kid's mom.
So glad you said Smom. The Wizard Newsies. This kid was in Newsies. I haven't seen that.
Okay, yeah.
Wow,
I don't know.
working.
It doesn't matter because this movie is not nearly as important as Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I liked Little Big League a little bit more as a kid. I don't know why. I think it's because the kid basically got to tell a bunch of grown-ups what to do. Because he was the coach of the team or the general manager, whatever you call it in baseball.
Wow,
The manager.
the kid from Little Big League did actually play in American Pie 2.
American Pie 2, I saw that.
High school guy.
Wow.
I actually remember that scene. So yeah, but yeah, both of those movies are good. I really, really need to revisit them and watch them.
Do you really need to?
I do. Oh yeah, they're just for nostalgia.
Yeah.
I think it'll be really interesting.
True. Just really fun movies.
Yeah, fun like kids movies, and
Right.
It's very much fantasy fulfillment because I mean, what kid doesn't want to be a pitcher in Major League Baseball, and what kid doesn't want to own a baseball? Okay, yeah, wants to be a pitcher. That's why Little Big League wasn't as good as Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. Yeah. Anything more to say about Rookie of the Year?
Just to you guys, check the pod chat right now.
Oh.
Ooh.
Right now. Listeners are getting a look behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is how it works. We communicate to each other in text.
Oh my god.
It's a photo of the kid doing the thing with the ball. That's the worst.
Such great, such great description there, Tiny.
Thank you. Yeah.
No, it's Thomas Ian Nicholas staring at the ball. Oh, that's perfect. That is
so
going to go on the
funny.
Facebook page.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my god. So that's Rookie of the Year and also Little Big League. Just briefly. Up next is from the same year, actually, from 1993. It's Mike. Do you want to go ahead and take this one?
Yeah, let's stay in the 90s. The better movie, right? I think if you're a 90s kid, this is the ultimate baseball movie. So I'm gonna
Absolutely.
pause for a second. If you haven't read the show notes, guess what the next movie is. The ultimate 90s baseball movie if you're a 90s kid. The Sandlot, of course.
Yes.
Of course, right? I mean, this is... If you think of baseball movies and you were born in the 80s, The Sandlot is number one. Has to be.
Yeah.
One of the quintessential like coming of age movies for kids in our age bracket.
Yeah, exactly. Endlessly quotable. Just perfect kid characters. It's not just one of the best baseball movies. It's also one of the best family movies of all time. Maybe is that too much to say?
Oh, I think so. That's good.
I think that's no.
You can back it up. You can back that up.
Oh, totally.
Okay. So if you haven't seen the movie, it's about this kid named Scott Smalls. They call him Smalls. Moves to this new town, doesn't have any friends, and he finds some kids playing baseball in this Sandlot kind of in their neighborhood. And there are just various characters on the team. Ham Porter, Squints Palladores, Yeah McLennan, Kenny DeNunez, and of course the talent of the team is Benny the Jet Rodriguez. And so it's just this ragtag group of kids. It's sort of about Smalls and him learning how to be cool and learning how to come of age and meet friends and learn about baseball, but it's really kind of just the adventures of what it was like to be a kid during this time. It's just iconic scenes where they play the actual little league team from the area and they spank them, which I think is just a cool idea.
Yeah.
and then the idea that Smalls becomes a broadcaster at the end, and Benny the Jet is an actual player. We have our second James Earl Jones appearance. And I remember the tragedy of the idea that the dog, the Beast, eats a Babe Ruth ball. I remember that like used to make me nauseous, thinking that if that were true, I would destroy Smalls. And so just on a personal note, I remember this movie being the type of thing we would my best friend in early elementary school, he and I were on the same baseball team, and his birthday was like on the 4th of July. So he would have like birthday baseball parties. He would get, there'd be like 12 of us, and we would just play a pickup game of baseball in front of his house. And then we'd all come in and watch the Sandlot. And it was just, we did that every year for a couple of years.
Dude.
And so a lot of good memories with this movie. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right? Just a bunch of kids playing a pickup game of baseball. Isn't that cool?
How cool is that? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good
How
job.
it's supposed to be.
Mike's friend from elementary school?
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah.
I think this movie inspired me to try to play baseball when I was a kid. I was terrible at it. It's a skill game, and I'm just a big, brutish dummy. But I think...
But you're our big, brutish dummy.
Oh, thanks, Mike. Yeah, I watched this movie on a loop for a while when I was a kid. And I think this is... I'm not quite regretting my choice of A League of Their Own as my favorite on the list, but this is a close second. This movie is just, it's pretty perfect, really. I mean, what could you possibly change about this movie to make it any better? It's just so, it hits every note that it sets out to. And I think one of the best things about it is it's kind of about, like Mike said, it's not just about one thing. I think one of those things is kind of a kid who falls in love with baseball, which is just beautiful to watch. Amongst all of the hilarious lines and the scary stuff and whatever, it's also really, really touching movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This movie inspired me to fake drowning in the pool.
They had 9 kids. That's one of my favorite lines of the movie.
So great.
So
yeah, I absolutely love The Sandlot. Mike, did you have more to say about it?
No, not really.
Okay.
I will love this movie forever.
Nice.
so funny.
Yeah, I absolutely just adore this movie. It's like I said, it's one of the quintessential coming of age movies. And Tiny, you mentioned about in Field of Dreams how it played up the father-son connection and stuff. The Sandlot is an interesting not reversal, but interesting thing, side of
antithesis of that.
Antithesis of that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because he has kind of it's a stepfather that isn't, they don't really connect, and they don't really connect from baseball that much, do they?
It's because Smalls like I said, Smalls kind of falls in love with baseball,
right?
And that's the link that he eventually has to his
right.
He and his stepfather bond over that.
Yeah. It's just such a good movie. I can't really say much else about it except that it's just you feel good when you watch it, and it's definitely one that it evokes feelings of summer for me, the way that baseball itself invokes summer.
Because it all takes place over summer break, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's just it just depicts this period of just Americana life that's so much tied to the feel and the spirit of baseball as the American pastime. And it's just it's an amalgam of so many emotions packed into just a really, really incredible coming of age movie.
How many times do you guys think in your life you've heard the line "You're killing me, Smalls"? In the thousands?
In the thousands, probably.
Yeah, in the thousands. I wanted to make a joke, but I can't. Yeah, in the thousands.
The kids in this movie are remarkably good. The acting,
absolutely.
I talk about how much kids suck at acting for the most part, but pretty much every single one of these kids in this movie are phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Patrick Renna, Ham Porter, I think is the standout.
Oh, he's so great.
absolutely.
So funny, and such timing for a kid who was, what, 12?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he says the line, "You're killing me, Smalls." I think he coins it. And he also says that you play ball like a girl, which is one of the best movie insults of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So great. Yeah.
Though, if we're being politically correct, is inaccurate.
It is very,
right. Especially after talking
Especially considering we just talked about A League of Their Own.
very politically incorrect, but it's hilarious.
Right.
It is hilarious, and it works for the time. It works for the time.
Yeah.
Right.
To be
But there are
politically-
many girls who play better ball than I do.
Yes.
Yeah. Several on my side too.
Yeah.
So to be more politically correct, you play ball like a girl. Good job. But yeah, the
You
Sandlot.
play ball like a dog.
There you go.
You play ball like a fucking idiot.
Jesus.
Oh man.
So yeah, the Sandlot. I mean, this is a must-see movie. This is this is a movie that needs to be seen.
Probably we'll make it into our vault at some point.
Probably. And
Yeah. If we do it long enough, yeah.
Oh yeah. And just talking about I think I might watch it maybe tonight after Tiny leaves.
Okay.
Unless you want to stay and watch it, I don't care.
I might.
Nice. Now I'm committed.
Aw.
Right.
You play with my balls like a girl, said Matt.
Oh my god.
Oh Jesus. So anyway, yeah, that's The Sandlot, 1993. Check it out. It's a great movie. I'm gonna be watching it after we record. Should we move on to the next one?
Yep.
Please.
Sweet. So this movie I wanted to watch today because I haven't seen it in like over a decade, maybe not since like when it came out in 94, but Angels in the Outfield. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Danny Glover movie. Christopher Lloyd also.
Christopher Lloyd, yeah.
Just call me Al.
This
That sounded like
movie-
Jack Nicholson. That was not
It
good.
did, yeah.
I apologize.
Close enough. We know what you're going for.
That's fine. But 1994, it's about an orphan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who prays that he, what was the description? He prays that,
He knows his dad,
okay.
right? And so his dad comes by every now and then. Of course, his dad has a goatee and a motorcycle. and his dad tells him, he keeps asking,
That's
Joseph Gordon-Levitt
right.
keeps asking when his dad is going to take him back, right? He's going to live with his dad. And he says, when the Angels win the pennant.
That's right. And then
So
from there,
he asks the Lord.
yes. And the Lord bestows upon him, Christopher Lloyd. And some angels, who helped them win the pennant or do all that. And I wanted to watch this in preparation for this, but it's not available on Google Play, which sucks. So I couldn't find a legitimate way to watch it. But man, this movie just I loved it as a kid. It really was I don't know what it was about it exactly. I may be out of my element here since I haven't seen it in so long, but just the way that it tied baseball to just like there was a hopefulness to it, and it really kind of tugs at the heartstrings with this little orphan kid who'd grow up to be in 500 Days of Summer. I'm stretching here. It's a really good movie, and what do you guys think about it? Because I'm kind of at a loss here.
Yeah.
I remember being more, I guess, emotionally affected by it than I probably would be today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love the idea. It's kind of like the super fairy tale depiction of it's kind of a Cinderella story, really. Or I guess it's more like an Annie story of this kid who is an orphan and then gets adopted. Spoiler alert, he gets adopted by Danny Glover at the end.
Oh.
Right.
And angels are cool, I guess. I don't know. I feel the same way you do, Matt, about loving it back then. It's very much a Disney movie of the 90s, if that means anything. If you guys kind of know what I mean by that.
Yeah.
I think that at the time in the 90s, Disney was putting a lot of their stock into animation. It's kind of the golden age of animation. In fact, 1994 was The Lion King. So I think a lot of their live action movies kind of leaned on a lot of hokiness. And so I have a feeling if we watched this movie today, we wouldn't like it nearly as much as we did back then.
Yeah.
It's overly sentimental.
I'm a little happy that I didn't get to see it today because I feel like I'd have an adverse reaction to it. But I have fond memories of it, either just from the fact that, you know, imagining that there were these invisible supernatural things helping influence events that kind of maybe was satisfying to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Tiny, what did you think of it?
I wasn't as in love with this movie as the other, kid baseball movies of the 90s.
Sure.
The Sandlot and Rookie of the Year and the other movies really overshadowed this one for me. But I think it's still kind of a sweet movie and kind of nice. But I don't think I've seen it since the mid to late 90s, so I can't say much about it. I don't remember much of it.
Yeah, same here. But yeah, so it was a significant part of my childhood for that 1 year at least until I saw Lion King. But yeah, totally at a loss for Angels in the Outfield. That was unexpected. But I'll go ahead and transition to the next one since we don't really have much else to say about Angels in the Outfield. This one was from 2 years later that I actually this is the movie that I watched today. 1996's The Fan. Have you guys watched this at all?
I've never seen this.
Okay. I'm interested to hear your thoughts in a bit, Mike, but I just watched it today. For those who don't know, it's Wesley Snipes plays a Major League Baseball star, and Robert De Niro plays a down-on-his-luck knife salesman who kind of attaches himself to Bobby Rayburn, the Wesley Snipes character, and he's a very emotionally unstable person, mentally unstable person. Robert De Niro is in this movie, and it's. You know, when we talked about football movies, I think we lamented that we didn't bring up the movie Big Fan with Patton Oswalt. And this is kind of a similar kind of movie than that, only it's more mid 90s thriller kind of movie. But I don't know, as a concept, it's solid because, I mean, it's about an obsessive fan who stalks a player, but in execution, it's not really that good. It doesn't really hold up. It's frankly, it's kind of dumb. I mean, just like, I'll go ahead and spoil it a bit here. The movie, the escalation of the story in this movie is a little silly because Robert De Niro is he's depicted from the start as a mentally unstable person who he gets not custody of his son taken away, but he gets a restraining order against him from his ex-wife because he goes to opening day with his son and then leaves his son there to go make a business deal or something. And it's kind of depicted as if it's supposed to make him more sympathetic, like, oh, he's just a down on his luck guy, but it's more like, okay, well, he's an abrasive ass who's just, not a good, like, he's mentally unstable is the point that the movie really, really, hits you over the head with. And from there, it just kind of slowly escalates and everything until it gets to about the hour and 15-minute mark. It just goes completely off the rails. Like again, I'll spoil it here really quickly, but, Robert De Niro he kidnaps Wesley Snipes' son and then he forces him to, how is it? He basically holds the kid ransom and tells Wesley Snipes that he needs to hit him a home run in the game in order to get his son back or something. And then they play when it's pouring rain and it's really, really silly. Mike, what'd you think of,
I wish I would have seen it more recently. I actually own the movie. I bought this probably 10 years ago. Yeah, maybe more. And I watched it, and I do remember actually liking it. I remember thinking the suspense was, I guess, '90s mid-quality level suspense. I don't know. Take that for what it is. I don't know. It's probably crappy. It's probably exactly what you say it is.
Yeah.
I remember liking the star power in the movie is surprising. I guess the quality of the movie is surprising considering the star power in it.
Yeah, it's Robert De Niro. It's mid-90s De Niro, so it's like it's reputable De Niro, I would say, but there is a ton of him just mugging for the camera and chewing scenery. It's like a lot of Tiny. I'll do an impression for you. It's a lot of that thing where he kind of crinkles his face and then like looks, like nods his head back. It's a lot of that. So it's kind of, it loses some of its appeal in that, and the overall suspense is handled pretty well. But I mean, once it reaches a point, it kind of reaches a point of no return, or a point of diminishing returns once it hits its suspense peak. And
is Wesley Snipes pretty good in it though?
He's solid. He's pretty good. There's a really good scene where Robert De Niro he's basically inserted himself into Wesley Snipes' personal life in a way, and they have this kind of scene where Robert De Niro is slowly kind of unveiling, like he's like showing that he's like, he uses a different name, and he tries to play off the fact that he doesn't know that he's a baseball star, and then Robert De Niro slowly peels away the fact that he's pretty insane.
Yeah. And
then Wesley Snipes he notices this, and then like you can kind of see this. And I may be giving his acting a little bit of credit here, but it seems like he plays a certain level of range, or he puts a certain level of range in his performance as he kind of slowly tries to get away from this guy who he's realizing is a dangerous person. And it's very kind of calm and collect, and kind of this unique, or not unique, but this very downplayed portrayal of someone who's trying to get away from a supposedly dangerous person, and it really plays well with the suspense of the scene.
I see. I'm kind of a closet Wesley Snipes fan. I think he's really, really good for certain things. Like, I mean, who could have possibly played Blade better than Wesley Snipes?
That's true.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I think he's good for certain things.
Yeah. The Fan was a hell of a lot better than Passenger 57, I would say.
Okay.
I think. I don't know. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Anything else about The Fan? Mike, you got anything?
No.
Okay. I watched that on Google Play, which you can rent for $3. I don't really suggest it. But yeah, it's, if you're into kind of mid-90s suspense thriller, like that those types of movies, or maybe it's the aesthetic of the certain filmmaking style of that genre in the mid-90s, but it kind of, you can kind of clump a lot of them together, and they kind of fit an aesthetic that seems just inherently mid-90s to me. Maybe it's just my perspective on it, but
it's a Tony Scott movie.
It is, yeah.
He could shoot some suspense,
right? And he did a very good job with it, too. And it's funny because the opening, this is my parting thought on The Fan, and then we can get on to the next one. But the opening credits, like there's this long drawn out just voiceover that shows like, the pictures are just old pictures of like Little League kids, and it's very the way that it's shot, it's very Tony Scottish, and it's like it's 3.5 minutes long before the movie actually begins properly, and it's kind of a drag, but
Hey, just weird side note, Matt. You pronounce aesthetic in a very strange way.
Do I really?
Agreed.
You hit the A and E very hard.
It's aesthetic.
Aesthetic. Fuck.
You kind of do like a AUGH.
I do, don't I?
Yeah.
That's completely. I really only ever really read that word.
It's a strange word. It's a strange word.
Aesthetic.
Yeah.
Wow, that's one of those words that, like, I've read it a lot, and I don't really hear it that often. Aesthetic. Aesthetic.
Are you teaching it to yourself?
I am. Wow. Okay. Are there any other words that I mess up?
No. Not that I can think of.
All right. Okay. Mike, do you want to bring up the next movie on the list?
Sure. The next movie, despite the iconic status of The Sandlot, I think I like this next movie even more.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah. In fact, it might be one of my favorite movies of all time. It might be like a top 50 movie for me.
Damn.
Interesting.
And I know that I'm in rare company. So I'm beating around the bush. The movie's Fever Pitch.
Mm-hmm.
It is a Jimmy Fallon, Drew Barrymore star, 2005 actually remake of a British movie of the same name, Fever Pitch. It kind of is lucky that it works out that way because pitch is what they call the football field, the soccer, the football field, and fever pitch is also what the pitcher does with a baseball. Anyway, so it worked out that way, and basically, it's a Farrelly Brothers movie. It's a tame Farrelly Brothers movie, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
It's no Dumb and Dumber, but it is reflective of how I feel about certain sports. I mean, I get that way about the Blackhawks. I get that way, especially about the Bears. I get that way about the Cubs. I get that way about the Bulls. I don't have season tickets, and that's kind of the dream, but I totally feel that way. And I don't understand exactly, maybe you guys can help me out, why this movie gets so much crap. I think it's a perfectly serviceable romantic comedy, and ultimately not an unbelievable level of fandom. It's just super cute. And at the end, I don't know what the song is, and I keep meaning to look it up, but when she is running across the field to get him to stop him from selling his tickets, I get chills every time. In fact, I get choked up every time. I loved this movie when it came out, and I still love it every time. It's kind of a traditional baseball season movie for me to watch to get into the baseball mood.
Wow. Nice.
I hate that it's about the Sox. I wish that it was about the Cubs.
Yeah.
But good for them. You know, they filmed this movie as the Red Sox were making their run toward the World Series.
Yeah.
And they wrote the movie intending it just to be another Red Sox losing season.
Mm.
And so I guess everybody knows this story, but they tacked on the ending with the win, and I kind of wonder what the ending would have been like had they not won. I don't think the movie doesn't really the win or lose at the end has nothing to do with any of the themes of the movie or the trajectory of the story at all. So I just wonder if it would have mattered. I imagine not. But I mean, Jimmy Fallon's doing just fine. And I think a lot of people are on the Jimmy Fallon bandwagon, but this was like his first movie post SNL when people were kind of tired of the Jimmy Fallon thing. Yeah. But I recognized a lot of the charm that we would see now, and I was kind of hoping we'd see a lot more movies like Fever Pitch.
You know, Tiny, have you seen Fever Pitch?
I have. I saw it back in 2005 when it came out, and I haven't seen it since.
Okay.
I kind of dismissed it right away because I don't like Drew Barrymore very much.
Right.
And at the time, I didn't care for Jimmy Fallon. But like Mike said, I've jumped on the Jimmy Fallon bandwagon. I think he's a great late night host.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's really talented in that regard. But at the time, I couldn't really appreciate it, and I really don't remember it hardly at all. So I can't really say much about it. But,
okay.
Yeah.
I just recently watched this movie for the first time 2 days ago. And, if I would have seen it in 2005, I would not have liked it. Probably.
Okay. Why do you say that?
Because I was not into Jimmy Fallon. And I've grown to respect him a lot. I didn't really like him on SNL. Cause he, just the classic Jimmy Fallon breaking character in the middle of a sketch trope, I guess. But seeing this movie with kind of not really a newfound respect for Jimmy Fallon, but just I respect him as a late night host and as a comedic personality, and I didn't watch it with the weight of him trying to do a post SNL movie career. So I think that really worked in its favor. And I thought that the chemistry between him and Drew Barrymore was just really, really strong. And the depiction, and I think that's one of the kind of underlying elements of at least this movie and The Fan and maybe a couple other movies and a lot of movies from the baseball movie subgenre, is that it depicts fandom in such a way that, like you said, Mike, it's within the realm of possibility, but it's still played up to an extreme level. But you believe it so well that this fandom and this obsession would take over his entire life. And that's something that I latched onto with it, because while I'm not a big sports fan or anything, I do have my interests that I convert into blogs and podcasts. But it's a really fun rom-com. Like you said, I think the way that you phrased it was perfect when you said it's a very serviceable rom-com. And it is a rom-com, and it's, as the resident rom-com aficionado, I give it a pass, or I give it a passing grade. But it does have some of it does struggle with some of the tropes and some of the cliches of the romantic comedy genre. Like Drew Barrymore's friends that are just kind of the really, really archetypical, cliched friend characters of the main character kind of spell out the insecurities and the problems that the relationship is facing. It's a little bit heavy-handed here, and a little bit on the nose in terms of, I wish they would have been disguised a little better, because their only purpose is to kind of really illuminate the problems with the relationship and kind of spell out some of the themes and things like that. But with those aside, I think it's a very, very enjoyable movie, and I can definitely see why people would love it.
Totes.
Yeah.
Sure. I haven't seen it in 10 years.
Yeah, it's good. Have either of you seen the original British one?
No.
No, I really don't like soccer, so...
I think it's based on a Nick Hornsby
I think so, yeah.
novel. Yeah, which I know that Pat from The Nerds You're Looking For is a big fan
Okay.
of that, so yeah. So yeah, that's Fever Pitch. So we got one more on the list, and I'll go ahead and bring us in to it. It's from 2011. It's Moneyball. It has Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. I haven't seen this since the theater, and I, much like Little Big League, it depicts the business side of baseball, and that's a side of sports and of sports movies that doesn't really get a lot of, that movies don't really seem to capture that well, or in a way that's very, that people can latch onto. And I think that Moneyball does this in a spectacular way. And like, I keep thinking of that movie Draft Day with Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
That came out, that kind of seemed like it was trying to be Moneyball.
I was just thinking that, actually.
Yeah, and it's funny to see how those two, very obviously, I imagine, very different movies could perform so very differently, while one seems to kind of be following the success of Moneyball. But yeah, I need to revisit this movie, but I really, really enjoyed it. Jonah Hill was fantastic in it. And
do you think he earned that Oscar nomination, though? I'm curious.
Mike, what do you think? I mean, I don't.
For supporting, absolutely.
Really? Okay.
Nice.
People, I always think about, and I'm embarrassed that I'm on a show called Obsessive Viewer and I don't know. I think about the little old man who was in Into the Wild for like 10 minutes and won a Best Supporting Actor.
Hal Holbrook?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Of course he earned it. Are you done talking, Matt? Do you mind if I kind of cite a scene?
Go right ahead.
So what I loved so much about Moneyball was kind of that business stuff you're talking about. The Cubs, the general manager of the Cubs is actually, he's the president of baseball operations. His name is Theo Epstein, and he is the guy who kind of took Billy Beane's idea and actually went somewhere with it. He actually won the World Series with the Red Sox in 2004. And so, like, I knew that going into the movie, and just to kind of see this tragedy of Billy Beane was super interesting to me. I wish the narrative of the story were a little better, were a little more exciting, were a little more uplifting, but I mean, that's the truth, so whatever. To go back to Jonah Hill, the scene where they are in Billy Beane, played by Brad Pitt's office, and they want to make a trade, and so they have to call 2 or 3 other teams to kind of switch a few things around, is so fucking brilliant.
Oh, absolutely.
Aaron Sorkin wrote that stuff.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that alone, I think warranted its Best Picture nomination. I don't think it was clearly not the Best Picture.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it didn't win that. But Jonah Hill's performance, Jonah Hill's reading of those lines was spot on. So yeah, I think he earned it. I love that scene so much.
Me too. That's what I remember from the movie more than anything, is that part. But obviously there's some Sorkin bias there. Yeah, I thought it was a great movie too. I liked it, and I didn't have a problem with Jonah Hill's nomination. But maybe, I don't know, maybe I need to just see it again, because maybe he was actually really good, and I'm just not remembering it right. But I think maybe it was just the fact that it was a surprise based on his filmography. It was just surprising to see him. But of course now it's not, because he's been phenomenal in so many things.
Right.
Yeah, I thought it was a really great movie. It's fun to look at the business side of baseball, because I think putting a team together, on a professional level is so much different than like being a high school baseball coach and you just kind of work with what you have.
Right.
Yeah, there's that classic saying that you play with, what is it? You play with the team you have, not the team you want, or whatever. Which is kind of like, basically a way of saying make the best of what you have. But with professional baseball, it's a little bit different, or professional sports, because you can just make a trade and get what you want as long as you're willing to pay for it. And so putting a team together and hitting all the right cylinders is really an art in and of itself. Mm-hmm. And it's a really difficult thing to do. That's why, managers and whatnot get paid millions of dollars, because it's really hard to do. And seeing the behind the scenes aspects of that was pretty cool in this movie. I liked it. Yeah.
I agree. And for the trading scene, it's classic Sorkin, just snappy dialogue, all that stuff. So glad he didn't have a romance subplot in that. Anyway, and also, so basically Moneyball is the Avengers of sports movies.
Okay.
So dumb. Yeah, I really liked Moneyball, and I'll have to revisit it. Anything else on the Moneyball?
I don't think so.
No. Okay, cool. Well, that about wraps it up for our discussion of baseball movies. And we basically just scratched the surface here. There's a lot of movies that we can also talk about later, like 42, 61, 8 Men Out, other sports movies that don't have numbers in them. Yeah, and we'll have to revisit this at some point.
There's some depth to it, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can't think of a pun to transition to Potpourri, but so now we've come to the part of the episode where we talk about whatever we want as long as it smells good. It's our Potpourri section. And each one of us is going to select a movie or a TV show that we've watched recently and then talk about it. And I guess I'll go ahead and go first. Courtesy of HBO Go via my Chromecast and my tablet technology. I watched Into the Storm. Tiny, you haven't seen this?
I have not.
And Mike, did you catch this last year?
No.
Okay. It's it's not wholly unwatchable. It's a tornado disaster movie, and a lot of the watchability of it comes from my deeply rooted fandom or my nostalgia and love for the movie Twister, which came out in the mid-90s and hit at a time when I was just absolutely obsessed with meteorology and tornadoes.
Great movie.
Oh my God, such a great movie. Into the Storm is not Twister. It so wants to be Twister. It's got Sarah Wayne Callies.
Ugh.
And don't worry, she doesn't have much to work with.
Okay.
And that's about it as far as like notable actors. It's all from there. It's a bunch of no names, and it's a weird hybrid, I guess, of found footage and not found footage. It's kind of like found footage when necessary, kind of like End of Watch, but a lot less subtle.
Okay.
And it's, I'll give it points because the opening scene is actually plays on like one of the little fears of like me as a kid had. Like at the time in the early to mid 90s, I was really obsessed with tornadoes, and my family had moved to Indiana, and we would have to take trips back to Ohio because my mom had some legal thing going on from where we had moved from. So I would go with my mom to Ohio on these road trips across this to the next state. But my mom was always a fan and is always a fan of driving at night because low traffic and all that. So this is before cell phones and even before I had a Walkman, I think. And like when my Game Boy battery would die, I would just stare out the window and imagine that, like I'd imagine like in the darkness there would just be a tornado there.
Oh my God.
And like it was a fun little game for like 8 or 9 year old Matt to freak him out. But the opening of Into the Storm is that scenario pretty much. Like these kids are driving and filming themselves driving because, I mean, why the hell not? And it's darkness, and then they notice the light, the street lamps ahead of them are going out. Why they can't hear a tornado or notice it's strange whatever is beyond me, but eventually they get killed in the tornado. But the movie, it would be, like I said, it's not wholly unwatchable. It's a very it's the kind of movie that you can stand to watch, but if you want to do dishes during it, that's okay. And if my final thought on it is that if the special effects weren't so haphazard, because the special effects are not that great in it, it could have been a little bit easier to digest, but it's not, and the characterization is just really, really crappy. And there are two really just moronic redneck characters that are like, they're stupid YouTube fame-seeking people that are amateur storm chasers. And it's like, I was waiting for them to just get killed in the most brutal way imaginable because, oh my God. Like, just the thought of those characters having kids, like fictional characters in that movie, the thought of them having kids is too much for me because the characters are so stupid. Fictional children I don't want to exist because the characters are too stupid. I don't know if I'm making the point I'm trying to make, but
I gotcha.
They suck.
Wow. So
anyway, that's Into the Storm. Don't see it. Watch Twister instead. Hell, even watch Night of the Twisters.
Nice.
Instead.
Devon Sawa.
Yeah.
Super Canadian movie.
Yeah, great aesthetic in those movies. God damn it. So yeah, that's my potpourri. Yeah. Mike, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I kind of debated what to talk about, but I haven't seen a whole lot except that I saw It Follows last week, and I know that Thekis, our guest last week, kind of talked about it, and I guess I'll just follow up because I was really super, super excited to see this movie. And we watched it, and right away the opening shot, it just screams, "This is like Halloween." Okay. It opens and it's a suburb street. You see the trees. It's fall-ish times. I don't know. And so I'm loving it right away. The music is fantastic. It's creepy right away. The tone is perfect, completely spot on, but I just wasn't scared by the movie. And so I'm trying to figure out, I want to hear more opinions and the people I know, who are willing to tell me what they like about this movie, because I just don't get it. For me, especially with horror, the tone and the music is not enough. You kind of need all three. You need the trifecta: tone, music, and is it scary? And with a horror movie, if it's not scary, that's kind of a problem.
Mm-hmm. Damn.
So I got to say, overall, I was disappointed. When I think of the recent really great horror movies, this It Follows doesn't even hold a candle to Babadook.
Oh yeah. That is, I'm gonna see it. I'm kind of hoping to see it this week, but I'm not sure that I'll get around to it. But I'm really anxious to see it solely for the kind of anachronistic stuff.
Setting?
The anachronistic stuff that Fekas was talking about last week. But yeah, I'll report back.
I'll probably wait till October to see it.
Good call.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's a bummer.
Yeah. It was.
Tiny.
Yes.
Want to round us out?
I will. Kind of a broken record lately. I keep talking about documentaries, but I watched one recently that's on Netflix. It's called Generation Iron. It's a couple years old. It is about, it follows a group of men who are competing for the Mr. Universe competition, the bodybuilding competition. It's just kind of one of those really interesting, look behind the curtain of this sport that's highly competitive. And I think bodybuilding is a really fascinating sport in and of itself, because it's highly competitive, but I think what you're really competing against is yourself, because it is basically just a struggle to be the perfect specimen of a human being. So it's like you have to, it affects every single aspect of your lifestyle. It affects how you eat, what you eat, how much sleep you get, whether you can do certain activities. You need to make sure you get enough sun, and it's just all these different, you have to dedicate every single aspect of your life to this sport and to this competition. And if you don't do that, you're really just kind of defeating yourself, and you won't really make it. But it was just really interesting to see all the different ways that these men are dedicated to this sport. One of the more interesting characters, or he's not a character, he's a real person. His name is Kai Green. He's this guy who, I think he kind of breaks the mold as far as the competitors of the sport go. He's actually very, very artistic and very deep. Like he paints like almost every day, and he makes these really personal paintings. And he does dedicate his life to the sport, but it's not the only thing in his life, which is kind of interesting. A lot of these other guys are pretty well off. They're kind of wealthy, and they have a lot of money, but Kai Green just lives in this little apartment in New York City and goes to this dusty little gym to work out every day. He was really interesting to watch in this documentary. And it's funny to watch the mental side of it, how these guys try to psych each other out during the competition itself, and how it actually is a competition. You think it's just a dude standing there, but so much of it is about how you present yourself, and you have to be very, very vain and very, very arrogant and confident in yourself. I think it goes above confidence. I think it's pretty much arrogance to think that you are the best looking person in a room. It's very vain, but it's kind of interesting to watch at the same time. I recommend it. It's an interesting thing to look at.
It sounds like a modern retelling of Pumping Iron. You ever seen Pumping Iron?
I have seen Pumping Iron, and it's different than that, but it does echo some of those sentiments.
Okay.
I remember when I watched Pumping Iron, I was really fascinated by how arrogant Arnold Schwarzenegger was. Because I think when he became a movie star, he became much more humble because I think he realized he wasn't the best actor. And so that's really the only side I had ever seen of him. But when you watch Pumping Iron, he is really full of himself.
Yes.
And you have to be that way for that sport. You just have to.
It's like a full body cam. I'm coming at home. I'm coming in the gym. I'm coming all the time.
So,
My God.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I liked it a lot.
Nice. Is that on Netflix?
It is on Netflix.
Nice.
Yes, Generation Iron.
Awesome. Really briefly before we count out for the episode. Speaking of documentaries and sports and baseball movies, there is I believe that it's still on Netflix, but Ken Burns' nine-part documentary about baseball called Baseball. And then also there's a documentary called The Battered Bastards of Baseball.
I have that in my queue. I haven't watched it yet.
Me too. I haven't watched it either, but I'm curious about it. So yeah, if you're listening, check those out and get back to us.
Also, really briefly, I meant to say this really briefly. My dad was watching Boyhood the other day when I just happened to kind of be walking by, and I sat down and watched like 30 minutes of it just while my dad was watching it. He was watching it for the first time. He rented it from cable. And I just gotta say, I just kind of had an epiphany, not an epiphany, but I just thought more about it while I was watching it. And I think I was a little too hard on it.
Oh, nice.
When we talked about it in our end of the year thing. I'm not changing my opinion entirely. I don't think it would quite make my top 10 list, but I was too hard on it. I think it is. I think what the issue with me was the issue was my ability to connect to it, not a flaw of the film.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so just throwing that out there. I was a little too hard on it. I would probably change what I said about it.
Interesting.
Yeah. Just wanted to say that.
Cool.
Yep.
Nice.
We accept your apology.
Right.
So sorry.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that about does it. Oh, I forgot to mention that the fan has a 2-second, not cameo, but bit part with Jack Black in it. So that's cool. That was, it caught my eye. But, so thank you for listening to this episode of the Obsessive Hero podcast, and we're going to throw it to our pre-recorded outros, and that's it for transition. So bye.
See you later, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Just got a new.
Well,
place to
I gotta
live.
say, it's not great.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
So today we're talking about baseball movies, right?
Yes.
And you're a Cubs fan?
And I am a Cubs fan. And so
I was joking.
Sports.
No, you're right, but that's what's not so great. So this is supposed to be a lot of people are calling it the year, and a lot of people are a little ridiculous in calling it the year, of course. But the Cubs made a lot of good moves over the summer. They got ace pitcher John Lester. They got a new manager, Joe Madden. A lot of their prospects are kind of playing out, and things are looking good for the Cubs. And so my friend and my brother and I thought it would be a great idea to go see opening day at Wrigley,
Which was actually the inspiration for this episode topic. But go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. And so I had never been to an opening day before, and not only was it opening day for the Cubs, it was opening day for baseball. So nationally televised, the kickoff of baseball celebration for the year. Fall Out Boy was going to open. I got to see Fall Out Boy play a couple songs, and the Cubs put up a big goose egg. Oh. And they are just the same old Cubs. The game was freezing. And it's like all the hopes I had leading up to the game. I mean, there were moments like they had the Ernie Banks tribute, and they talked about all the new prospects, and everything was so exciting that there were times leading up to the game where I got chills.
Mm-hmm.
And John Lester only went 4 innings. The Cubs left like 10 runners on base.
Damn.
Which is awful.
Yeah.
And gave up 3 runs. It was just same old Cubs. Very, very defeating.
Mm.
And so that was my Cubs experience. So let's talk about some baseball movies.
Well, I have a quick question. It being like them talking about it being the year. it's not completely because of Back to the Future Part 2, is it?
Well, it's partly. That's
Okay.
kind of the joke. In fact, when we went to the game, we were talking about how we could get on TV. And by the way, we were so far up, there's no way we would have been on TV. But we thought it would be clever to dress as Marty and Doc in Back to the Future 2. But
That's awesome.
in fact, we were, until the Cubs got demolished yesterday, we were talking about going to the 4th of July game, and the 4th of July game is against the Miami Marlins. And Miami Gators are the team that the Cubs beat. And so we just think that would be a cool game to go to, just because that's
cool. That's so unbelievable.
who they beat in the World Series in 2015. But yeah, so the Cubs are the same old Cubs.
Well, that's a shame.
And the Bulls lost to the Cavs, and the Blackhawks lost to the Blues.
Ooh, Chicago had a rough weekend.
It was a rough weekend.
Damn. Wow.
Yeah, it's sports, man.
And incidentally, the only MLB baseball game I've ever been to was a Marlins game down in Florida.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
I went to a Cleveland Indians game when I was a kid.
Okay.
Nice.
It was fun.
Did the Marlins recently move to Miami, or have they always been the Miami Marlins?
I think they've always been in Miami.
Okay.
And they just kind of rebranded.
Okay. I was 9 when I went to that game, so I don't remember what.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They used to be the Florida Marlins.
That's what I thought, Florida Marlins.
Yeah.
But they've always been in Miami.
Yes.
That's what I think I learned from Ace Ventura.
But Ace Ventura was about the Dolphins.
Was
Miami
it?
Dolphins.
Okay.
It was the Dolphins, yeah.
I took a risk there because I couldn't remember what sport it was in Ace Ventura. Damn it.
Yeah, Dan Marino was in it.
That's right.
Places out, Dan.
He's a hell of a pitcher.
Jesus. I might cut all this.
Joe Montana was a quarterback.
God.
I said Joe Montana. Montana. I think I just said Montana twice.
I think you might.
So too.
Joe Montana.
Thank you for downloading or streaming the latest episode of the Obsessive Viewer podcast. The music you heard at the top of the episode and right now is provided by Loudlike. Their EP, Mistakes We Must Make, features our theme song and a clips of events. You can find that on iTunes, and while you're there, please rate and review them and us, and let us know what you think. Also, like us on Facebook at facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer. Follow us on Twitter at obsessiveviewer, at obsessivetiny, and at I am Mike White. And also check out obsessiveviewer.com for reviews of movies, TV shows, and industry commentary. Also, check out obsessivebooknerd.com for book reviews and commentary on the evolving world of reading. And also Tiny's side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, is a podcast exploring the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts. You can find that on iTunes, Stitcher, and at thesecularperspective.com. Finally, you can email us at Matt, Tiny, or Mike at obsessiveviewer.com, or email the podcast directly at podcast@obsessiveviewer.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week.